Vital villages, thriving towns. In this chapter, we'll study about the importance of villages and flourishing towns. This is the chapter number 8 of history. So let's start the chapter. Prabhakar at the blacksmith's shop. Blacksmith. The people who do the work of irons. Prabhakar sat watching the smiths at the local shop. There was a small bench on which iron tools like axes, sickles were laid out, ready for sale. A bright fire was burning, and two men were heating and beating metal rods into shape. It was very hot and noisy, and yet it was fascinating to watch what was happening. So, this was the special work done by the blacksmiths. Now, iron tools and agriculture. You know that agriculture is done with the tools and very important equipments for agriculture, like we have studied about before a short while, axes, sickle, etc. So these are the equipments very important in agriculture. In agriculture, iron tools are very important. Without tools, we cannot do the agriculture, we cannot grow the crops, we cannot harvest the crops like that. We often take the use of iron for granted today. Things made up of iron and steel are a part of our daily lives. The use of iron began in subcontinent in our subcontinent around 3000 years ago. Some of the largest collections of iron tools and weapons were found in the megalithic burials. During the uh, megalithic age, these kinds of megalithic burials were found with the iron tools, about which you read in chapter 4, and I think you remember about that. Around 2500 years ago, there is evidence for the growing use of iron tools. Means iron tools were formed in more and more proportion and used by the people during that period. These included axes for clearing forest, the iron plowshares, as we had seen we had seen in chapter 5. The plowshare was useful for increasing agricultural production. You know that in agriculture various kinds of tools we use, and these are very important for agriculture, for growing the crops. We have studied about it. Other steps to increase production, that is irrigation. So one step we have studied, that plowing the land and using the equipments and methods with the tools, iron tools, etc. Another method to increase the production, it means on the same piece of land, if we increase the crops production, then other way is irrigation. Irrigation means supplying water to the plants and to the fields, to the crops. The kings and kingdoms you have been reading about could not have existed without the support of flourishing villages. While new tools and the system of transplantation, chapter 5, we have studied about it, increased production. Irrigation was also used. Irrigation works that were built during this time included canals, wells, tanks, artificial lakes, because these are the main sources of water, right? Main sources of water, lakes, canals, etc. So with the help of canals, wells, tanks and artificial lakes, water was supplied to the fields or agricultural areas. So it was irrigation. You can see these tools. Iron tools, there is a set of captions. Choose the right one for each of the picture. Sickle, tongs, axe. Prepare a list of at least 5 objects made of iron or steel that you use almost every day. You can do this thing yourself because these are very simple tools about which we have studied. This one sickle, and axe and tongs. This is tongs, this is axe. Now if you look at the chart, you will find that some of the stages in the construction of irrigation works are mentioned. Here we can read: Labor is provided by the people. Second one, farmers also benefit because crop production is more certain. Third one, farmers have to increase production to pay taxes. And fourth, kings provide money and plan irrigation works. So let's see. Kings need money for armies, palaces, forts. They demand taxes from farmers. For this work, they demanded taxes from farmers. So now, from where farmers could get the tax, could pay the tax, farmers have to increase production to pay tax. This thing, clear? So this is third. Farmers have to increase production to pay taxes. Here, this sentence will be here. This is possible with irrigation. After that, kings provide money and plan irrigation works. This one in fifth, right? So this is fifth. This one, kings provide money and plan irrigation works. After that, in sixth, labor is provided by the people. In sixth, labor is provided by the people. Production increases, so does revenue. And after that, the last one is at ninth, labor is provided by the people. After that, this one is the ninth. Farmers also benefit because crop production is more certain. So this is last one. I hope that you understood. Who lived in the villages? Who were the people? Those who used to live in the villages. There were at least three different kinds of people living in most villages in southern and northern parts of the subcontinent. Here, in the Tamil region, in southern region, Tamil region was the southern region. Large landowners means rich landowners who used to have big parts of land were known as Velalar. Velalar, ordinary plowmen were known as Ujhavar. So these were Velalar and ordinary plowmen were known as Ujhavar. And landless laborers, including slaves, were known as Kadai Siyar and Adimai. Right? So those people who are very rich, landowners known as Velalar, and ordinary plowmen or peasants, Ujhavar, and poor, including slaves, Kadai Siyar or Adimai. Three kinds of people were there. In the northern parts of the country, the village headman was known as Grama Bhojaka. Grama Bhojaka was the village headman like today's Sarpanch. Usually men from the same family held the position from 4 generations like Grama Bhojaka. This time Grama Bhojaka, after the death of this Grama Bhojaka, his son will become Grama Bhojaka in this way, dynastically, right? In other words, the post was hereditary, we can say. Okay. After that, generally he had slaves and hired workers to cultivate the land. Besides, as he was powerful, the king often used him to collect taxes from the villages. It means he used to collect the taxes from the villages. Sometimes he also functioned as a judge, sometimes as a policeman. Clear? So in this way, Grama Bhojka was very strong position, and he was like Sarpanch or village headman today. So he was very important post. Apart from the Gram Bhojaka, there were other independent farmers known as Grihapatis. Grihapatis were the independent farmers, those who used to have the land, and it means most of whom were small landowners, means they had small parts of the land, but they were independent farmers. So those people were Grihapatis. And then there were men and women such as Dasa Karmakara, who did not own land. They did not have land, and they had to earn a living working on the fields owned by others. Means they used to work on the others' field because they did not have the land. So they were Dasa Karmakara. In most villages, there were also some craftspersons such as blacksmith. About blacksmiths we have studied in the beginning of this chapter: potter, carpenter, and weavers. So these people were craftspersons. The earliest Tamil compositions. Some of the earliest works in Tamil known as Sangam literature. You have listened about the Sangam literature. This literature is in Tamil language, were composed around 2300 years ago from today. This These texts were called Sangam because they were supposed to have been composed and compiled in assemblies known as Sangamas, right? Sangams of poets that were held in the city of Madurai. Madurai is situated in the southern part of India. The Tamil terms mentioned above are found in Sangam literature. After that, next topic, this one, finding out about cities, stories, travelers, sculpture, and archaeology. Stories, travelers, sculptures, and archaeology. You may have heard of the Jatakas. Jatakas, stories. Jataka stories. These were the stories were probably composed by ordinary people and then written down and preserved by Buddhist monks. Means Jataka stories were about the literature during the Buddhism, right? Of Buddhism. Here is a part of Jataka story. Let's discuss about this. The clever poor man. Clever poor man. Once upon a time, there was a clever poor young man who lived in a city. There was a city like your city. His only resource was a dead rat. He started off by selling it for a coin to a hotel for their cat. It means cat uh, used to eat rat today also. So he sold it. Then one day there was a storm. The king's garden was littered with branches and leaves fully during the storm. You know that in your home also during the storm or during the season when these kinds of storm are felt in the northern part or southern part of India. So these kinds of situations can be created at your home. Then the gardener was at a loss as to how to clear the mess. The young man offered to clean the garden if he could keep the wood and leaves. The gardener agreed at once. The gardener happily agreed. The young man rounded up all the children who were playing with an offer of sweets for every stick. Means they will keep and they will lift one stick, then they will get one chocolate like that. Clear? Sweets. And leaf that they could collect. In no time, every scrap had been neatly piled near the entrance. Just then, the king's porter was on the lookout for fuel with which to bake his pots. So he took the whole lot and paid the young man for it. So in this way, you understood. You understood that how the resources were used by this person. Our young man now thought of another plan. He carried a jar full of water to the city gate and offered water to 500 grass cutters. 500 grass cutters. They were pleased and said, "You have done us a good turn. Tell us, what can we do for you?" He replied, "I will let you know when I need your help. It means I will tell you later." He then made friends with a trader. One day, the trader told him, "Tomorrow a horse dealer is coming to town with 500 horses." Hearing this, our young man went back to the grass cutters. He said, "Please give me a bundle of grass each, and don't sell your grass till mine is sold." They agreed and gave him 500 bundles of grass. When the horse dealer could not buy grass anywhere else because he already told to all the grass sellers, then he purchased the young man's grass for 1,000 coins. So in this way he earned a big amount of money. You can understand this story and how the person got money from a very little resource, right? Starting with a little resource. Here we can see ring wells in this picture, ring wells. And here in this picture, these are the works on bricks or stones or wood, like that material. Clear? Found in Sanchi, situated in Madhya Pradesh, Sanchi Stupa, Madhya Pradesh. We can use other kinds of evidence to find out about life in some of these early cities. Sculptors carved scenes depicting peoples lives in towns and villages as well as in the forest. Many of these sculptures were used to decorate railings, pillars, and gateways of buildings that were visited by the people. So these were the different kinds of ways of life in the cities and villages. Many of the cities that developed from about 2500 years ago were capitals of Mahajanapadas. In chapter 5, we learned about Mahajanapadas. 16 Mahajanapadas were there, Vajji, Magadha, etc. As we had seen, some of these cities were surrounded by massive fortification walls, big walls, strong walls. In many cities, archaeologists have found rows of pots and ceramic rings arranged one on top of the other. So, in the picture we have seen, these are known as ring wells, as we have seen before a short while. These seem to have been used as toilets to some cases and as drains and garbage dumps. These ring wells are usually found in individual houses. We have hardly any remains of palaces, markets, or of homes of ordinary people. Clear? So perhaps some are yet to be discovered by archaeologists. Others made of wood, mud brick, and thatch may not have survived. So these are left. Clear, archaeologists found and studied about these ring bells. Another way of finding out about early cities is from the accounts of sailors and travelers. So one thing we came to know about these kinds of things found by archaeologists and studied, and another thing is literature, accounts of sailors, travelers written by sailors or travelers. One of the most detailed accounts that has been found was by an unknown Greek sailor. He described all the ports he visited. Find Bharuch on map 7. We'll find on page number 105 and then read his description of the city. So we'll see this map in the next video, but we have to read this story, the story of Berigaza. Berigaza means Bharuch in Greek language, perhaps. The gulf is very narrow at Berigaza and very hard to navigate for those coming from the sea. Because it was narrow, so it was very hard to be navigated. Ships had to be steered in by skillful and experienced local fishermen because they were very familiar with the local place, who were employed by the king. They were kept by king. The imports into Berigaza were wine, copper, tin, lead, coral, topaz, cloth, gold, silver coins. These things were imported. You have to remember, dear students, these things were imported to Bharuch. And which things were exported? Himalayas, from the Himalayas, ivory, agate, carnelian, cotton, silk, perfumes. These things were exported. And special gifts were brought by merchants for the kings. These included vessels of silver, singing boys, beautiful women, fine wines, and fine cloth. So this was about Bharuch. In the next video, we'll study about coins. So read this chapter from the textbook and revise it. Thank you. Have a nice day.